Hello, welcome everybody. I can see the attendee account ticking up so I can tell people are joining. If you're joining us live, then tonight is Wednesday, May the 14th of 2025. And this webinar is presented by CalSOAP. We are the California Student Opportunity and Access Program. And this webinar is designed or targeted towards 11th graders and their families. We know you're finishing up the 11th grade year now. 12th grade is a really big and important year, and we have lots of concerns, of course, senior year, like applying to college, figuring out where you're going to go to college, and of course, paying for college. So that's some of the things that I'm going to go over in this presentation. You'll notice that although you won't be able to type into the chat, if you look probably for most of you at the bottom of your screen or phone, or if you tap the Zoom, there should be an option for Q&A. And if you do have any questions, I strongly encourage you to put them into the Q&A. I have a colleague here, Francisco Rodriguez Martinez. Thank you so much, Francisco, for coming and supporting. He is going to be taking over the Q&A and helping to answer your questions. And just in case, he's bilingual in English and Spanish, so you can feel free to ask your question in either language. The most common question I get at the beginning is there going to be a recording of this, and can I get access to the slide deck? And the answer to both of those is yes. In the chat just now, I have put our CalSOAP website, the blog section, and in that blog and webinar section, that's where we post all the webinars the next day. And we will also post a link to the slide deck. It will be in PDF format, so it won't be like in PowerPoint format, but you will have access to the slide deck that I'm sharing and all the links that are in it. So feel free to check that out tomorrow at calsoapsandiego.org under the blog section. All right. So again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate. Type them into the Q&A. We even have it enabled so that if you want to ask a question anonymously, you can ask it anonymously. And Francisco knows if there's something that I should be addressing to the group as a whole, like a question someone asks that maybe will apply to a lot of people, then he knows that he can tell me to address that out loud as well. So again, don't be afraid to use the Q&A. We love questions. And I will go ahead and start by sharing the slide deck, and we will go through senior year. And again, we love questions, so as many as you have, try to challenge us and we will do our best to answer them. Okay. Oops. 1 second. All right. So this is my information. Zoom probably sent you a reminder on my behalf, so you have my email address. It's kkwhitaker@ucsd.edu. I'm a part of CalSOAP. Again, we're the California Student Opportunity and Access Program. Our website is calsoapsandiego.org. We fall under the umbrella of UCSD, but we are a grant-funded organization. There are many CalSOAPs throughout the state of California, and ours, for us, the fiscal agent is UC San Diego. So I do want to encourage you, if you're not already following us on social and you do use social media, we are on X and Facebook at San Diego CalSOAP. Or alternately, if you want to use Instagram, we're at CalSOAP San Diego. We also have a YouTube channel. We are not on TikTok for San Diego, although the Imperial County does have a TikTok account. But we definitely encourage you to follow us. I would say probably 80% of our posts are related to high school seniors. And so that's going to be you soon. So I definitely encourage you, anytime I find about an opportunity, a fly-in program, a summer program, an internship, a scholarship opportunity, reminders about financial aid, we always post them on social media. If you're not on social media, I do recommend that you check out the website though, calsoapsandiego.org. All right. Most of you probably are at the point now where you know that college is something that it's education that you have after high school that can prepare you for your future career. And one of the differences between high school and college is that in college, you choose your classes and you choose your major. So one of the first things you want to look for when you're figuring out best fit of a college is Do I want to major in engineering or business or biology or computers or visual and performing arts or education or political science? Whatever it is, you want to make sure that you're applying to colleges that offer degrees in those programs so that you can study them. If you're not sure which college offers which degrees, I'm going to recommend the website mymajors.com. It's very searchable to let you kind of narrow down if you're looking specifically for marine biology, if you're looking specifically for electrical engineering or data science or whatever it might be. Mymajors.com is a helpful website. And just quickly, these are some other good, free, helpful resources that can help if you're doing like career and college searching. California Career Zone is a really excellent one. We like that one a lot. ONET Online is very data dense, but it's very good, accurate, up-to-date data. And so I recommend that one also for like adults and parents. San Diego Workforce Partnership is a good website if you're looking specifically at the job market in San Diego County. Big Future Careers is a great place to research careers. And if you're specifically interested in a health career, Google Explore Health Careers, because locally there's a website that maintains the different health-related career offerings in San Diego, from like medical school to like physician's assistants and where the nursing programs are, et cetera. So just a very brief, we are going to get into the money part of it very soon, but just briefly, college looks different for everybody. When somebody asks me, how long does college take? I know typically I could just say 4 years, but that's specifically if you're going full time. And that's specifically if you're trying to earn a bachelor's degree. And that is also probably if you're not changing colleges or changing majors a bunch of times, because that can add time to how long it takes to get a degree. It also depends. Are you looking for a certificate, an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a professional degree, a master's, a doctorate? That all has an effect on how long school takes, right? So just a couple examples of some things and how long it takes to get trained. For something like to be an administrative assistant, to work in an office, to get into something like automotive repair, the skilled trades, that might take a year to 2 years at a vocational school or a community college. Let's say you want to get into something like maybe being a veterinary tech or a dental hygienist or a paralegal. You could probably do an associate's if you were going full time in about 2 years at a community college. To get a bachelor's degree, again, this is if you're going full time, but if you're a full-time student and you want to get a degree in something like engineering, marketing, computer science, perhaps a bachelor's degree takes about 4 years. Now, there are some careers that take more education, like a master's degree or a teaching certificate or a counseling program. Like if you want to be a school counselor, a teacher, a therapist, a physical or occupational therapist, or a social worker. If you want to, some careers might require you to get a master's degree or to go to apply to something like law school, which typically is another 3 years plus beyond the bachelor's. And then there are programs like to become a medical doctor, a dentist, a veterinarian. Those things you have to apply to like med school or dental school or veterinary school. And that's usually an additional 4 years after your bachelor's, plus you have additional years of internship, fellowship, and residency as well. So college looks different for everybody. There's no age maximum. So I tell students it's never too late to go to college. If you don't go to college when you're 18, you can go when you're 19, or you can go when you're 22, or you can go when you're 32 or 82. All right. So there's not an age maximum. We do encourage people to, try to keep the momentum going. But college will always be there and available for you if you ever want to come back to it. I also want to mention that there's 2 different ways to get a bachelor's degree. One way is to do 4 years at a university and to do all 4 years there. So you'd start there, do your freshman, sophomore, junior, senior classes there, and earn a bachelor's degree at the end of probably about 4 years. A different path that you can also earn the same bachelor's degree is to start at a community college for 2 years, and you're doing your freshman and sophomore year there. Then you apply to transfer and do your last 2 years at a university of your choosing. At the end, you get the same bachelor's degree. But you'll notice that there's going to be benefits and limitations of each way. There's not a good way or a bad way. I want to emphasize for the 4 years at a university, one of the maybe benefits of doing that is that universities tend to have on-campus housing. So if you're looking for that dorm experience, and if you're looking to be at that university the whole time, then maybe the 4 years at a university is the path for you. A tremendous advantage of doing the community college transfer path is that if you're a California resident, probably your first 2 years of college full-time tuition will be covered completely by the Promise application. Chances are very good that it will be covered completely. That means basically free tuition for the first 2 years, and then you're only having to pay the university tuition for junior and senior year. So that can be a lot more affordable for some people. And I encourage people especially to go that route if they're undecided about exactly what they want to do, because community college is a good environment to take lots of different classes and figure out what you like. Sometimes people don't know that something exists like linguistics or psychology or criminology, and they take a class in it and they suddenly fall in love. Right. So I think community college is a great place to explore your options if you're not sure what you want to major in quite yet. All right, so in California, we have all these systems. The 3 public systems are the community college system. There's over 100 community colleges. We have the Cal State universities like San Diego State and Cal State San Marcos, and there's about 22, 23 of these. And we have the UCs, there's 10 of these, including UC San Diego locally. Then we have our vocational and our private colleges. So locally, for example, we have USD, Point Loma Nazarene, USC's in LA, Southern California. Those are the main ones in the state of California. You also might have the option, you might want to go to an out-of-state college, whether it's public or private. Can students apply to any college? Yes, they can, but some universities might be highly selective. So just because you apply doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a yes, you're accepted. Some also might be very expensive and they might not offer full financial aid. So those are things to consider. Can students choose any college? Yes. But be aware that public colleges charge what's called in-state tuition for California residents and a much higher out-of-state tuition if you're considered an out-of-state student or if you're considered an international student. If you have lived and gone to high school in California for at least 3 years, you should qualify to get in-state tuition, but you have to be careful. There's specific immigration statuses that you'll need to find out. But if you're going to a public university in a different state, remember, they're going to charge you out of state tuition if it's a public college. So look into that and just be aware of that. Can students choose to attend any college they are accepted to? Yes, it's their choice. They can choose. Just remember that some colleges, like community colleges, only offer mostly associate's degrees, while others might offer bachelor's and higher. Also check to make sure the college has the major you want, and make sure to do a reality check with money and make sure that you can afford the college that you're looking at. So these are the factors that are considered for college admission. For a community college, they serve the community. They are not selective. They are not trying to keep people out. If you apply on time, if you apply as early as possible, chances are about 100% that you will be accepted at a community college. All you have to do is be 18 or have your high school diploma or equivalency. And you can even attend free community college classes as a high school student where you might be earning dual credit, like both high school and college credit. But for community colleges, they don't require a certain GPA. They don't require a certain test score. They don't require an essay. Okay. Now for 4U universities, that's when it starts to get a little bit more selective and a little bit more competitive. They're looking for a strong GPA. They're looking for a strong pattern of coursework, like 3 to 4 years of math, 4 years of English, etc. They're looking to see if you took any AP or honors classes. And some universities are looking at additional factors, like some universities are looking at SAT or ACT scores, maybe what extracurricular activities or sports you were involved in, if you did any community service, if you have any leadership experience, and some of them require you to write an essay or like the Common App, they call it the personal statement. And for the UCs, they call them PIQs, the personal insight questions. All right. I do want to mention some military related options. Parents, if you are or were in the military, especially if you were disabled in the line of duty, I would strongly encourage you to go to the CalVet, that's for California Veterans website, to find out your benefits coverage. Students might be able to get partial or sometimes even full tuition coverage at many California colleges and universities. So if the parent has a military record, it's possible that the student, again, might get partial or sometimes even full tuition coverage at a California public college. Also, members of the military, you get your own GI benefits or money for you to go to college. If at the right time you chose and named somebody to pass those benefits on to, if you didn't spend that money all on yourself, you can transfer it to a dependent or to somebody else. So to check to see if you still have that benefit, again, CalVet is the website where you want to find that out. And besides the public colleges that work with students who are military or military dependents, there's also a lot of private colleges that classify themselves as yellow ribbon. If they're a yellow ribbon college, they also will have a veterans center and will help you, work with you on, whether there's some tuition coverage for military independence. Students, if you yourself are interested in military service, many colleges offer ROTC programs, and there's a big ROTC scholarships for students that go that route. And then if at age 18 you want to enlist or join a branch of the military yourself, they will often pay for your college expenses. But just remember, if you enlist, you are a full-time soldier or seaman, you are a full-time military employee, so you might not be able to go to full-time college right away. But when you do, or if you do, they will have GI benefits for you to be able to help afford college. All right. Francisco, any questions yet? Are we doing okay in the Q&A?
No questions so far.
Okay, thank you. All right. So this is an overview of the senior year, and now we're going to start to get into the money part of everything. So August 1st is when the common application opens. That's for private and out-of-state colleges. It's also when the UC application opens. Now it opens then. When are those applications due? It varies. The deadlines vary for private and out-of-state schools, so it depends on the school. October 1st is when the FAFSA and California DREAM Act open. Those are the financial aid forms. So again, if you're an 11th grader or the family of an 11th grader right now, you can't fill out that form yet, but you should be able to as soon as October 1st. Now, October 1st to November 30th, that's the UC and CSU applications are open for submission. So at that point, you could actually submit them. Some people start working on their UC application and they work on it in August, they work on it in September. It's ready to go. And as soon as October 1st, they can submit it, although they can wait as late as December 1st, but it's really good to get started on it as soon as it opens. Now, community colleges, those applications usually open in January. So they might be open starting in January through February, March, April, May, June, maybe through summer. Some of them are even open in the fall for the next fall term. So community college applications, usually though, the time to apply is starting in January or in the spring of senior year. March 2nd is the priority deadline for most financial aid applications like the FAFSA. January, February, and March is if you have applied to a four-year university as a freshman, that's when they're releasing their admissions decisions and you're finding out if you got in. March and April, if you did get in somewhere, that's usually when colleges are sending you a financial aid package or award. They're saying you, based on the FAFSA you filled out or the DREAM Act you filled out, here's the financial aid we think you qualify for at our university or our college. May 1st is a common statement of intent to register deadline for many universities. So for many four-year universities, if they accept you, they want to know by May 1st, are you going here? And a lot of times, if you are also required to send a deposit at that time or sometimes to reserve housing at that time. So be aware of that May 1st date. April and May is also when you can create a Web Grants for Students account. If you're going to college somewhere in California, that's where you'll be able to see things like the status of your Cal Grant. That's where you could put a Cal Grant on hold if you were taking a leave or a gap year or something like that. And then June is usually when you want to send your final transcripts and test scores to colleges. And I know somewhere in there you have to also be a senior and do classes, and you have prom and yearbook and homecoming and all the other stuff that comes with senior year, AP testing. Okay. All right, so let's get into the money part of it because this should be mainly about financial aid. All right. Community college for about 1 year, if you were going full time, the tuition, it varies it's based on number of units. It's probably going to be for a full-time student for 1 year, the tuition would be somewhere between $1,100 and $1,400 for 1 year. That works out to about $100 a month. It's pretty low cost if you wanted to pay or if you had to pay out of pocket. Most community college students are going to be getting the promise, so they probably won't have to even pay that tuition, but that's the out-of-pocket cost, just so you know, for 1 year, a community college education. The CSU currently is about $8,000 a year in tuition, so that would be schools like San Diego State, CSU San Marcos, Cal. Oh, question, Francisco? No? Okay. So that's the tuition part at a CSU. For the UCs, the tuition part is about $15,000 a year, but it might be up to $20,000 depending on the campus because they don't just have tuition, they also have campus fees. So for example, when you pay tuition and fees, say like to UC San Diego, the local fees might cover things like your membership at a school gymnasium or your MTS trolley and bus pass as a student or things like that. Now, if you're looking at a private university, maybe like an MIT, a USC, a Harvard, a Stanford, a Yale, those are going to probably be somewhere upwards of $40,000 per year in tuition. Okay, so now as we're having palpitations, how do we pay for this? Let's get into the paying for it part. Oh, and of course, that's just the tuition. Need I say that in beyond fees and tuition, there are also, you're expected to buy books and supplies. You have to have a place to live and food to eat. Sometimes that's called room and board. There are also miscellaneous expenses, things like a cell phone, a computer, and then you have transportation, whether you need a parking permit to live on campus, whether you have a car and you need gas and car insurance, whether you need to pay for a bus, a trolley, a bike, whatever it is. So all of those together equal the total cost of attendance. So let's say 1 year of attendance at like a UC probably is considered right now somewhere between $34,000 and $39,000 for the year. It's going to depend if you live on or off campus, if you're getting in-state tuition, and how you're eating and where you're renting or where you're living and how many roommates you have. So that is a lot of money. That's not to say you have to pay that all out of pocket. I'll kind of explain the package that goes together for most students and how they're paying for part or all of college with financial aid. Okay, so the real question is not just how much does college cost. That's very important for you to know. The sticker price, you should know up front what is the total cost. Okay, but you should also know the net cost. In other words, how much financial aid can you as a family expect to receive versus what would you have to pay out of pocket with savings or loans or working or whatever. Okay, so let's figure out how much financial aid do places offer? How much can I expect? Let's look into that. I want to mention students and parents are always asking me about who offers a full ride and how can I get a full ride? And I have never in my life on a financial aid award package from a college seen the words full ride and then 100%. It doesn't come that way. Even if a student has the kind of package where everything put together makes it like it covers 100% of the cost of attendance with gift aid, that does happen, but they don't call it a full ride. Like it's going to be a combination of things most likely. When colleges put together a financial aid package for a student, usually they include any federal grants you might qualify for, any state grants you might qualify for, any federal loans. Now remember, a loan is not gift aid. It does have to be paid back, but it's considered financial aid. It might also include a work study award. It might include scholarships from the college, and it might include any outside scholarships that you applied to and earned privately yourself that you're bringing in as part of your own money you're bringing in. All of this comes together to create a package each year. You don't have to pick and choose. Most students I know are getting a federal grant and a state grant and a grant from the college and maybe work study and maybe a loan and maybe a couple scholarships from various sources as well. And you package or stack these all together so that they're all going toward the cost of attendance. Some scholarships are specific in that they might only cover tuition expenses, but some financial aid, like some grants and scholarships and things like that, they will pay anything that's part of the cost of attendance, which could include things like food and rent and books and car payments. All right. It just depends on how much you qualify for. So these are the main three things. If you come away with nothing else, these are the main messages that I want you to learn from tonight. I would like to make sure if you qualify to do it, I would want everyone to fill out either a FAFSA or a DREAM Act in grade 12 before March 2nd. That is my wish. Please fill out a FAFSA or a DREAM Act in grade 12 by March 2nd. Even if your family income is too, quote, too high, and you don't qualify for a lot of gift aid from the federal or state government, the college still wants you to fill out this form. So sometimes they award even merit-based aid, things that are based on things like GPA. It's not even based on financial need, but they won't award anything if you don't fill out the form to begin with. All right. So I strongly encourage you, even if you know you're not going to get any gift aid from the federal or state government, please fill out a FAFSA or DREAM Act so the college can possibly award you whatever additional aid they might be able to offer. The second thing, apply for as many scholarships as possible by those scholarships' individual deadlines. All right. The FAFSA is just one form, or the DREAM Act, and it's, due March 2nd, and you fill it out once a year. It's the same every year. It's very straightforward in that sense. Scholarships, there's like hundreds of different scholarships. They're for different amounts. They have different eligibility criteria. Some of them are renewable, some of them are not. And they all have different deadlines and different applications. So that's a little bit more of a process. And I will talk about some resources that will help you find scholarships. The last thing you can do is, of course, work, whether it's the student and or the parents working, and save money for college. Personally, I might recommend saving it in a 529 savings plan, because that way it is tax exempt and it is accruing interest along the way. However, if you prefer to save it in a jar, or, tuck it under your mattress, or, you borrow it from a family member or whatever it is, that's great. I'm just letting you know, if you save it in a 529 plan, once it's being used for college expenses, it is tax exempt. So for some families, parents like that idea of, oh, I can put all this money here and I'm now not going to be taxed for it, as long as students eventually use it for college. Now, what if the student decides, I'm not going to go to college? And you say, well, we have all this money for you. It's still your money and you can still get it out. You'll then just pay tax on it in order to get it out. Okay. So what situation is your student in? In 12th grade, if the student is a US citizen or a permanent resident, if they have a social security number or a T visa, they are probably going to fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Now I have a little asterisk here. I do want to bring up the fact that we have many mixed status families. What that means is sometimes the students will have a social security number, but one or both parents will not. Like a parent might be undocumented, for example. Previously, for many years, FAFSA, whatever information you shared with FAFSA, they didn't share with any other facets of the federal government. It was just only shared with colleges for financial aid purposes. We have a new administration at this time, and things in the Department of Education, which is who runs FAFSA, have been changed a lot. We can't necessarily predict, and we can no longer guarantee that someone who submits a FAFSA, that their tax information, for example, or their personal information won't be shared with another department of the government. If that makes you nervous, and that means I don't want to fill out a FAFSA for that reason, what I would recommend is filling out a California DREAM Act instead. They've opened it up so that any Californian can fill out a DREAM Act. Now, you wouldn't be eligible for any federal aid with the DREAM Act, but some people that are very concerned about the federal government having their personal information are choosing to do the DREAM Act either before deciding on the FAFSA or maybe instead of it. Now, if a student is undocumented, but has been a California resident for at least 3 years, or if they have a U visa or TPS, temporary protected status, then they would fill out the California DREAM Act. All right. Again, they might qualify for California aid in a California college. They wouldn't qualify for federal aid. It's a different form. It's not the federal government. It's CSAC, the California Student Aid Commission, is where the DREAM Act goes, and they will protect your information and keep it within the state of California and not share it with federal entities. So again, it's up to you, but you generally don't fill out both. Although this year, some people have filled out a DREAM Act first and then have decided to go back and also fill out a FAFSA later because the student has a social security number. I don't recommend that you do or don't do one or the other. I do recommend that you find out your options and what are the steps to take. Generally, though, the rule is if you have a social security number, fill out the FAFSA. If you don't, but you're a California resident, the student fills out the California DREAM Act. All right. There are some situations where a student actually is not eligible to fill out either the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act. And this is if they have a temporary non-immigrant visa. Some examples of these are F visas, H visas, and J visas. If you have that non-immigrant visa, you're actually not eligible to fill out a FAFSA or a DREAM Act. And I'm sorry if this is the situation you're in. It does make it tough because you're not going to get federal or state financial aid. However, you might qualify from a scholarship or some aid from a specific college and college funds, especially if it's a private college. You might have to use your own savings or loans, or you might have to seek scholarships that don't require U.S. citizenship or that are geared toward quote unquote international students, if that's the case. All right. Is there anything else? We've heard about FAFSA. We've heard about DREAM Act. Is there anything else that I need to fill out? Actually, there might be. There is a form called the CSS profile. I like to call it FAFSA's nosy cousin. And it is a financial aid form that's required in addition to the FAFSA by some private and out-of-state universities. These are some examples of very well-known universities that require the CSS profile. And basically, they're going to ask even more personal financial information from your family, but that is something that is required from some privates and out-of-states. For example, Caltech requires it. That's in California, but it is private. Occidental, Stanford, USC, Pitzer, Harvey Mudd, Columbia, many others, but those are just some examples of some colleges that do require the CSS profile. Okay, so where are we going to get this money for college? These are the main sources of how you can pay for college. Number one is savings, all right? However, the cost of college has become so high, just for the tuition part alone, the cost of college as well as the cost of living is very high. So most of us aren't able to save 100% of the cost of attendance to send someone to college for 4 years. That's very challenging. So the next step is also prepare to fill out the FAFSA or the DREAM Act in 12th grade, and every year you're in college. You have to keep renewing it each year based on the previous year's taxes. From the FAFSA or DREAM Act, that's where you're going to find out any grants that you qualify for. If you qualify for work study, that's where you get a part-time job in college, and then the financial aid package pays your actual hourly salary, or you might be offered a loan. Now, grants are great. They're gift aid, and they do not need to be paid back. So if you're offered a grant or if you're offered work study, I strongly encourage you to accept it. However, if you're offered a loan, I encourage you to have a conversation as a family and decide, is this a loan in the student's name? Is this a loan in the parent's name? Have we exhausted every other resource? Like, have we looked for every grant? Have we used work study? Are we using our savings? Have we applied for every scholarship that we can? And if you've done all that and you still are short, but it's your dream and goal to go to a certain college, you might then want to consider a loan. But remember, just because you're offered one does not mean that you have to take it. And they will offer up to a maximum. That doesn't mean you have to take out that amount. If they offer you $5,000 a year, it's okay to say, I'm actually just going to take out $2,000 a year because then I'm going to have less to pay back. And that way that's manageable. That's something I don't need to take the maximum, right? If I spend in a certain way. So the next way is scholarships. Scholarships are like grants in the sense that they are gift aid that doesn't need to be paid back. So I strongly encourage you to look for scholarships that can help pay for college. And yes, a lot of students can earn multiple scholarships and use multiple scholarships at once. And then the last thing is decide on loans. Yes, we're going to take a loan, or no, we're not. And think about the return on investment. If you're taking out a big loan for an expensive college, is the student studying something where when they get their degree, they're going to be able to make a lot of money with that degree? Okay. It's something that if you're looking at this as purely a business decision, which it's not, it's also a social decision and many other things that college is, about. But it is also an investment and it's a business question. If you were going to buy a car, you want it to be a reliable car, right? If you were going to buy a house, you want to make sure you can afford the house. If you're going to pay for education, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? What's the return on investment? What college is affordable that's going to be the best path for us? Okay, to get a little bit technical, you might hear some terms coming up this year, things like SAI and COA. What do those mean? The SAI is the Student Aid Index. It used to be called the EFC, or the Expected Family Contribution. It's going to be based on family size and income. It could be a negative number, like the SAI could be as low as negative 1,500. It could be negative 500. It could be 0. It could be 5,000. It could be 50,000. It could be anything up to, I think, almost $1 million is the SAI. The SAI does not vary. It is the same dollar amount regardless of which college you decide to attend, but basically the lower that number, the more need-based aid you'd qualify for. So say, for example, if your SAI was either negative or 0, or say maybe under $2,000, then that means you would probably qualify for a federal Pell Grant, you'd probably qualify for a Cal Grant, and you'd probably qualify for some need-based aid. If your SAI was higher than that, the higher it gets, the less need-based aid that you would probably be offered. The cost of attendance is what varies from place to place and year to year. So the SAI, if your family size and income stays about the same, your SAI will probably stay about the same every year. But the cost of attendance, that's the part that's variable. So the cost of attendance varies from college to college. And the biggest difference is not really in housing and food and things like that. It's mostly differences in tuition and fees that change, that are different from university to university. Okay, so what is the FAFSA? It stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It's generally the one students will fill out if they're a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. And the California DREAM application is usually for students who do not have a social security number. And that one is not for federal aid, only for California state aid. FAFSA lets you know any federal and state aid you qualify for. DREAM Act is only for the state of California. When do you do this? In grade 12, and you keep resubmitting it once a year, every year you're in college. So what kind of questions are they going to ask you on these forms? The main things are family size, how many people live in your household? The student, if they have a job, what was their income? And the parent's income, if they have a job or jobs, what was their income? Student and parent assets. Assets are things like your savings account, if you have a 529 plan, your investments, stocks and bonds, and rental properties. If you own a business or if you own a farm, it'll also ask for the value of that business or farm. What it does not ask for, or what it will not require, is the value of the home you live in or the value of your retirement accounts. Okay, that's not considered an asset. That's considered your home and your retirement. So that doesn't count. Now, if you have a rental property that you get rent from, that is an asset and you do have to list that, but you're not going to be required to list a value of a home you live in or retirement accounts like a 401k or a 403b. Please note that the parent income will continue to be considered until the student is age 24. Even if the parent says, hey, I'm cutting you off when you're 18, the government doesn't see it that way. The government sees it as you still have an obligation until the student is 24 to provide for them financially. All right. Not that the government is going to bill you, they never will, but in order to afford college, the college has to bill someone, and they'll bill the student, not the parent. But I'm just saying, until the student is 24, that bill will come due. So the student is not considered independent. Unless these are the exceptions. If one of the following is true, then the student can file as independent instead of dependent, and then only their income and situation is considered, not the parents. If the student is designated an unaccompanied minor or homeless youth, okay, so then they would be considered independent on the FAFSA. If the student is married, if the student has a child or children, if the student enlists in the military, if the student is a foster youth, or if the student is legally emancipated. Those are the situations under which a student can fill out the FAFSA as independent and they don't need the parents' information. Unless one of those is true, they're going to keep asking for the parents' information until the student is age 24. Okay, so let's look at this actual class. If you are finishing 11th grade and you are the high school class of 2026, I would encourage you to fill out the FAFSA or DREAM Act as soon as possible after it opens, which is October 1st of this year, October 1st of 2025. Now that's next school year, but it is this calendar year. The priority deadline to fill it out will be March 2nd of 2026. What year is it going to be based on? It's going to be based on tax year 2024. So if you have not yet filed your 2024 taxes, but you had a job or you made enough that you should be filing taxes, I strongly encourage you to do that so that you're getting ready to fill out that FAFSA or DREAM Act. So it's going to be based on tax year 2024. Fill out the FAFSA. The FAFSA you're going to be filling out is going to be the 26-27 FAFSA. And I know that sounds weird because next year it's 25-26. So wouldn't you fill it out for the year that you're in? But no, you fill it out for the first year you're going to be in college. So your first year of college will presumably be 2026-2027. So that's the FAFSA you're going to fill out. Now it is confusing because the 25-26 one will still be open because there are some current students that fill it out late in the middle of the school year because they find out they have to, right? But you're filling it out for when you're going to be in college. So you're going to be filling out the 26-27 FAFSA when you do it. Say it's like March or April, and you're finding out from a colleges like what your financial aid package is. They'll tell you any federal aid you might qualify for, any California aid you might qualify for, any institutional aid or scholarships that's right there from that university. Like for example, if it's a California community college, they might tell you qualify for the Promise Grant, but you still had to have filled out the FAFSA or DREAM Act. If you're at a UC, they might tell you qualify for the Blue and Gold. If you're at a CSU, you might qualify for the State University Grant. Francisco, is there a question?
Yes, I think this is a good question. It says for the FAFSA, if the uncle is the one with the saving 529 savings account, do they have to declare that one?
Okay, this is a great question. Okay, for a California 529 savings account, there's kind of two names on the account. There's the quote owner of the account, and sometimes that's typically a parent, but it could be a grandparent or an uncle or something like that. And then there's the beneficiary of the account. That's the student that is presumably eventually going to get the money. The person that lists it as an asset on the FAFSA is only someone who's contributing to the FAFSA. So that would either be the parent or parents, or the student if they actually own the account. Usually the student doesn't own the 529 account, at least not while they're a minor. So it's not a student asset. It's usually a parent asset. Say we get into the case of an uncle or a grandparent, they don't ask for their information on the FAFSA. So if you trust that uncle or grandparent and you don't want to list whatever's in the 529 on the FAFSA, technically that does not have to be listed as an asset if it's not in the parent or student's name. And I say that they're the owner. Now, keep in mind, let's say the student then uses that money in their first or second or third year of college, and they're using it on college expenses, so it's tax exempt. At that point, in next year's FAFSA, then the student has to start declaring it as either an asset or income if they were using it. But again, the original person who had it, if that wasn't a parent or a student, if the owner of the account is like an uncle or a grandparent, technically, no, you do not have to list that as an asset on the FAFSA. Be careful if you're filling out the CSS profile, because they might get nosy and say not just like who owns this 529, but who's listed as the future beneficiary of the 529. So keep that in mind. Hopefully I answered that question. Good question. Okay. This shows in America, the way typically the percent of Americans, like what percent is the way they're funding their college education. You'll notice that between parent income and savings, that's about 37%. Then you'll see another 24% that's the parent borrowing loans and the student borrowing loans. Then maybe you have about 9 or 10% that's based on income and savings. And maybe maybe you have a wonderful, uncle or grandparent or aunt or something. The friends and relatives is 7%. And you'll see that for most people, grants and scholarships account for about 23% of what they're paying for college. I'm hoping that you can apply for as many scholarships as possible so that you can get as much gift aid as possible and maybe make that 50% of the pie or 75% of the pie or 100% of the pie. And so I'm going to start to share some resources on scholarships in addition to the financial aid that might come from the state government, the federal government, and a college itself. I'll start talking about different scholarship resources. Oh, if you're curious, I know you can't fill out the FAFSA yet, but if you want to find out what is my SAI, what's my student aid index, how much can I expect to get? The studentaid.gov website, that's the FAFSA website, they do have something called the Aid Estimator. I strongly encourage you to go there right now. It will ask you questions like what is the student's birthday and things like that. You can fill in a fake birthday. You can fill in a fake income amount. It's not a fake form, but it's not an official form. It's a form you can play around with and enter different numbers. But if you want to enter a family number, a family income, and approximate like birth month and year for the student, you can get back, well, according to this, we think this is your predicted student aid index. So you can kind of tell, oh, this means I probably won't qualify for a Pell Grant, or hey, this is good. This means I will qualify for a Pell Grant. So you can kind of get familiar with that possibility by going to the studentaid.gov aid estimator. Again, you can't fill it out for real, not till October 1st, but you can at least get an estimate if you'd like. Okay, I encourage everybody to go to the Cal Kids website, calkids.org. A lot of people, if you are a public school student, this is based on family size and income, so it's going to depend on your family size and your family income. But a lot of families find out that they have already, they didn't know it, but they have a $500 scholarship waiting for them through Cal Kids. And so that's something you want to at least go, and it's already in a 529 account, so it's already, earning interest for them and that type of thing. So if you haven't checked Cal Kids, check it out. You might or might not qualify for money, and that's okay, but at least you could find out if you have a $500 scholarship waiting for you. And there's an additional 500 possible, for example, like if you are a foster youth, and there's some other things. So Cal Kids is a great one. Another really good scholarship source is Big Future Scholarships. Your students might already, as 10th or 11th graders, be applying for Big Future Scholarships, but it is free. There's no essay. There's no GPA minimum. Big Future, they do drawings every month for smaller scholarships, like $500 scholarships, but then they also have some $2,000 ones. And then at the end of senior year, if you've done all 6 steps, which are easy steps, you might go into a drawing for a $40,000 scholarship. So Big Future is a great one that I encourage students to sign up for. Cal Kids is another one to check out. And also FastWeb, if you're trying to look for national scholarships, things like the Coca-Cola and Pepsi scholarship, the Dell scholarship, Google scholarships, Amazon scholarships. FastWeb is a great database of really big national scholarships that you can apply to. I'm also going to direct you to our website, calsoapsandiego.org. At calsoapsandiego.org, we have a scholarship section, and I try to list them chronologically by due date. So you can start by looking this summer at like, okay, is there any scholarship that is for 12th graders that's due in August? How about that's due in September, that are due in October, et cetera? And you can look, and that way you can prioritize like, okay, well, this one's not due until March, so I'm not going to worry about it now. But guess what? Right now I can apply for the Leatherneck scholarship or the whatever it is that's open, that starts earlier. So check out calsoapsandiego.org, look at the scholarship section. Again, we also try to really emphasize local scholarships like the San Diego Foundation and anything that's local to San Diego County and Imperial County. So please check out calsoapsandiego.org under the scholarship section. Again, these are some things we highlighted like California Career Zone, San Diego Workforce, explorehealthcareers.org, californiacolleges.edu, Big Future, mymajors.com, CalKids, FastWeb, studentaid.gov is where you go for the FAFSA and the aid estimator. Dream.csac.ca.gov is for the California Dream Act. Also, if you happen to be an immigrant, regardless of your documentation status, immigrantsrising.org is really an excellent website. It gives things like educational resources that let you find out if you'll qualify for in-state tuition. It offers resources for if you need something like an immigration lawyer or legal aid. It has a database of scholarships that are not based on citizenship status. So Immigrants Rising is a really good resource for all those kinds of things. And they do have a lot of things in other languages besides English. So I encourage people to check that out if that applies to you. So once again, I encourage you to follow us on social media, such as X, Facebook, or Instagram. We're at CalSoap San Diego, and we also have our website, calsoapsandiego.org. And my name is Carlo K. Whitaker. You can reach me at kkwhitaker@ucsd.edu. And once again, at that website tomorrow on the blog section, that's when we'll be posting this recording, and we'll also be posting the slide deck so that you'll have access to the slide deck. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and see if there's anything left in Q&A that we can still answer, Francisco. Any questions?
No, there's many questions. Most people just asking the questions about the savings, but that was taken care of during the presentation.
Okay. All right. Okay. So it's been nearly an hour, and if we don't have any more questions in the Q&A for now, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. And again, look at calsoapsandiego.org tomorrow for the recording for the slide deck. You can also just check out our website. There's lots of good resources in it, and you have my email address if you want to email me any questions. A big, huge thank you to Francisco for handling the Q&A. I appreciate that so much. And good night, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your week.